Hey and welcome back. In this video I'm going to show you how in ROBOTC you can control your robot to make some decisions, specifically using the control structures of if and else. To make things go a little bit faster, in ROBOTC I opened up a pre-existing program. I already have my motors and sensors set up. I have a old project pseudocode all set with some repeat forever commands controlling a motor on a bump switch. Before I even begin working with my if and else statements, the very first thing I want to do is take this existing program and make a copy of it. And when I look under File, I won't see the name Make a Copy. So I'm going to choose File, Save As. When I'm under Save As, I can rename this project to what I'm going to be working on. And in this video, it's going to be if or if else. And I'm going to save it somewhere that I will be able to find it again. I'm going to be saving mine to my desktop. I'm going to click on Save. And now on the top, I have a tab here that says if or if else. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to update my project title. So I'm going to leave it Trial Programming for YouTube. I'm still working on this one, and I'm going to update today's date, and it's still for my Automation and Robotics class. And I'm going to update my task description. I no longer want my program to just run on a repeat forever command. I also want to update the description to describe really what my more complex program will do. So I'm going to type in this program will either run a motor forward on a bump switch or backward switch. Now in my pseudocode, I'm going to have to update some things. In my pseudocode, I still want my program to repeat forever. I still want it to turn on bump, and I still want it to turn off on bump. The only thing I want to change is if it's going to be running forwards or backwards. So my first start motor will be start motor forward. And I'm going to put in top speed. Then I also want it to say on limit, start motor, I am having a tough time typing, backward, full speed. And I'm going to put that in the wrong place. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to cut, and I'm going to paste that in. And I'm actually going to copy that, paste it in. Now I really like to separate my program pseudocode out with a little bit of spaces. And I'm going to have this until limit release. So I have repeat forever on bump, motor forward, until bump, stop motor. And then on limit, start motor backward full speed until limit release stop motor. Perfect. Now I need to get to know a little bit more about my if-else statements. First thing, I need to know where to find them. When I'm looking onto the side under my text functions, I first want to be sure I'm under Robot, Platform Type, and for this set of lessons, we're going to be using VEX 2.0 and Natural Language PLTW. Once I have confirmed that my robot's set up correctly, I can go into my Control Structures section, and I will go into my Control Structures. Which one was it again? If. Here we go. My if and else. And I also have my if statements. So we'll be looking at which one that is in this lesson. Switching over to our lesson, all about control structures, First thing we're going to look at in a little more detail is the if statement. An if statement is something that your program will run if your condition is true. So in previous lessons, we've looked at what causes a true condition, something like a limit switch being held. And when a limit switch is held, we have it appear as though it is limit switch equals 1, and that means we're holding that limit switch. And then if my condition is true, it will go on to my true commands. The variation on the if statement compared to the while statement is it's not going to repeat. It's just going to do that. It's just going to do that. So we still need to use our repeat forever commands. Adding a variation like if else allows me to say if my condition is true, it's going to follow my true commands. But sometimes my condition is not true. So if it's not true, what do I want it to do? It will go to the else, which will be my false commands. Now, getting started, just doing an if and else is perfect. But if you're working on the final projects for my class, we have some variations. We need to take it a step further, and we need to use multiple if statements. So let's look at this program. In this program, if the bump switch is held, because it says equals 1, it's going to start the right motor going forwards. But what if I want it to do something different? Otherwise, then I'm going to use the word else. Else, if the limit switch, notice this was a bump, if the limit switch is equal to 1, it's going to start my motor and it's going to go in reverse, looking at that negative sign. And if neither of those things are true, it will go to my second else and it will just stop the motor. Perfect. That's exactly what I want for my program. But I want to make it a little bit shorter. So what I can do is write it in shorthand. So in shorthand, I'm going to go for my if statement. If my sensor value is bump switch pressed equal 1, it's going to start my right motor forward. If else, meaning if that's not true, it's going to move on. It's going to say, what about if the limit switch is pressed equal 1? Then it's going to start my right motor and go negative 63. If neither of those things are true, it will go to the else, and it's just going to stop the motor. Hey, that sounds almost exactly like what I had in my pseudocode. So I'm going to switch over here, and I am going to update my program with my if-else statement. All right. Hopefully you notice I made a couple updates to our program. After my repeat forever, I added in my new control structure of my if command, or my if statement I should say. If my sensor value of my bump switch is equal to 1, which means it's pressed, I will start the motor running in forward speed, full motion. If the bump switch is not pressed, else, it is going to stop the motor. Notice also that I have all the rest of my commands that I had previously programmed in still remaining down below because I'm missing something. Coming back to the lesson, I am missing my else. Because remember, we're working on if else. So I'm going to have to look for if else in my ROBOTC, and I'm going to program it in to look like this. Well, I have been digging, and in my control structures, I can't find anything under my if statements that says the command exactly if else. So I'm going to make it. And I'm going to make it by taking this set of commands. I'm going to copy that. And after this curly bracket, I will paste it in. I'm going to go back to my sample, and I'm going to type in else before my if statement. So right here before this, I'm going to type in else space if. It turned blue. That's so good. That means it recognized my program. Now I have to go back to my sample, and I want you to notice how after my if else, there is a set of curly brackets. I've really been noticing that you all have been struggling with your curly brackets. So I'm going to add in these sets of curly brackets, and then I want to make sure that I get my curly bracket outside of this else statement as well. So heading back into my ROBOTC, I have my if, else, and I'm going to go and make a couple extra lines here. So I have if, set of curly brackets. Now I'm going to take and type in manually my curly bracket and my curly bracket going the other way. Now I'm going to take this command down here. I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to paste it in where I want it to be. And I'm going to hit Tab just to line everything up. I have only a couple things to update, and my program should be successful. Remembering back in my pseudocode that if my limit switch is pressed, I want it to go full speed backwards. So those are my things that I need to update. I want to change this from my bump switch to my limit switch. And I want to have my only motor go in reverse by adding a negative symbol. Now I want to take all my previous code that I was working with, and I'm going to delete that. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check my curly brackets. So I have a set of parenthesis pair for my entire task main, one at the top, one at the bottom. I have a set of curly brackets for my repeat forever command, one at the top, one at the bottom. Ooh, I'm so glad I checked because I have it. Oop, it was just hiding below where I couldn't see. One at the bottom right here on line 56. And then I have a set of curly brackets for this if statement, 1, 2. I have a set of curly brackets for if else, 1, 2. And I have a set of curly brackets for my else, 1, 2. So I have the correct amount of curly brackets. I'm going to compile my program. Bam! I nailed it.